Alright, peace and greetings, YouTubers. So welcome to Your Questions, My Answers, and I believe that this is part 8 of the series. And to be honest, this is actually probably one of my favorite sets of videos to do on this channel, mainly because there's not a lot of backlash that comes from it. It's a conversation between me and you, the subscriber, and random people who aren't subscribed to my channel, who would not be familiar with the content that I already put out, don't really watch this. So you know what, I can just honestly answer questions that you guys have put out there and be on my merry way. And I know that when I wake up, I won't have a million notifications saying, "You black nigger, F you, F Obama, F black," you know, I don't gotta deal with none of that. So yeah, I just take some of the questions that you guys leave in the comment section or in my inbox or whatever else you follow me on, and just answer them. Oh, before we begin, I told y'all I have been preparing for President Trump to come and take over, so this is another one of my little outfits. So you know, I got about 3 of these now. Nice little dashiki, so I'll be on the boat real soon. I'm almost ready to go. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, one of my kids got me that. They went to Kumasi, and they thought of me and bought me one of those. That's actually, I think Kumasi is like the second largest city in Ghana. Somebody fact check me if I'm wrong on that. But yeah, so it's kind of cool when you work with kids and stuff. They kind of remember you when they go in and do things. I'm like, oh, that's real nice. So yes, I love the kids. Love the kids. They're great. Anyway, let's get to the questions. So, I just took a few. Y'all know I'm long-winded, so I probably won't be able to get to all of them. But one of the questions that a lot of you guys keep asking is you guys are always asking about the books in the back. And, you know, can you talk about what books they are? So if you follow my channel, if you go back to the 6th edition of this series, I talked about some of them. So I'm going to talk about a few more, but not the ones I already talked about in part 6. So this one here is called True Crime. I like this one. This is probably one of my favorite ones to read. It's just a quick synopsis of a lot of the crazy crimes that has happened in America over like the last century and stuff. They got 9/11 here and all this other crap. And so it's just basically a book that just reminds me that white people are crazy, and it's not just me. And no, I'm just kidding. But no, it's a great little element of history. If you're somebody who's like a real big history buff and you like to follow things of the past, this is a great read. So it's called True Crime. Who's this by? Nick Yap. Alright, let's see here. I think I talked about Jim Crow before already, or the new Jim Crow, but here's another one on Jim Crow, American Nightmare, The History of Jim Crow. This is by Gerard Packard. This is a pretty decent one as well, too. I'll recommend this for like freshmen or sophomores in college. This is a great way to just kind of get a deeper introspect into what was going on during that time period. Oh god, this is a good one too. Innocence Lost. And this is basically when child soldiers go to war, and it's just talking about basically these kids in Colombia and just what their experience has been as far as like stuff with like drug cartel and everything. And it should make you appreciative of the upbringing that you've had if you've had an okay one, because this will show you that, listen, the world freaking sucks, to be real honest. And there's a lot of people who get dealt a really terrible deck of cards, but no, this is a very interesting one because it basically talks about how kids they're trained to almost think like adults at really young ages because they're fighting these big, giant adult wars that, you know, they basically have nothing to do with, but they have to be collateral either as soldiers or as people who are killed. And so that's a decent book. Let's see, I'll skip that one. That was How America Was Lost. Oh, this is a good one. This is about Elaine Brown, A Taste of Power. And if you know Elaine Brown, she was one of the Black Panthers. Great read. There's a lot in here about her too. I didn't know a lot about her, so this was a good book to catch up on. Oh, this is right up my alley too. How Europe Underdeveloped Africa is a great read. Walter Rodney. I haven't finished this one yet. Listen, I get a lot of books, and half the time I like start all of them, and I never finish them until weeks and months later because I start so many all at the same time. But this one gives a great lesson about like the Berlin Conference and colonialism and colonizing everything. Y'all saw how I tried to do that save with the word colonize. What else did it talk about? Just a lot of the policies and stuff and the trade deals and the tax deals and what's going on with currency and commerce. And it just explains what's going on the continent and why Europe has a horrible, horrible history of what they've done to the world. You know, Britain has also colonized all but 22 countries in the world too, by the way. I got in a fight with somebody on Twitter over this one. This is called Germany's Black Holocaust. And so there was a time period on Twitter where they were having like Black history you didn't know. And I remember I made a tweet about how there were 80,000 people of African descent who were killed during the Holocaust. And then all these crazy people came in and was like, oh my God, this is not the moment for you to try to put your race thing in everything. Can't you just let people have their moment? I'm like, wait, 80,000 people died. It's terrible that Hitler killed like 6 million people. But 80,000 is still a lot of people. You're not going to erase the black history or the blackness out of the Holocaust, because that's exactly what they've done. So a lot of people don't know that we were victims of the Holocaust as well. So I think that's an important thing to mention. So those people who felt some kind of way, you'll just have to feel some kind of way and be salty. I have a book on Thurgood Marshall in here, American Revolutionary. Let's do one more. This one is it's called Pan-Africanism, the idea and the movement, 1776 to 1991. There's actually an updated version of this book that comes to more recent times. This is by, I'm not even going to be able to mess up the name, so I'm just going to, yeah, you just find the book. Here y'all try to pronounce that. My diction is not that great. Oh, shoot, I forgot the camera's focus. But anyway, this book is actually probably the first book I read that helped me to kind of start changing my perspective of how the world worked. I read this when I was like 17, 18, my freshman year of college. I had a professor at Howard named Dr. Wright, and when we started the class, the first question he asked us was like, are you a good nigger or a bad nigger? And I was like, I am an African American. Like, I was in such a different state of mind, so I couldn't grasp the concept of what he was talking about in that class originally. I had a really hard time at first, and when I started reading this book, it helped me to understand and look at the world globally. When I came into that class, I definitely was somebody who I looked through an American lens. I knew that there were problems in the world, and that I've always kind of been one who kind of looked at things globally and kind of had an early, maybe premature viewpoint of Pan-Africanism, as far as me seeing myself as African and me seeing anybody in the diaspora as one and the same, but I hadn't mastered it and I didn't know the history yet. So this is a really great book to really get that to kickstart that conversation, if that's something you're trying to have with yourself and with just society. So let's move on from the books. I'll probably go through some other ones another time. Moving on, let's go to the next question. See, black people do read. All right. Somebody had asked me, what has been my toughest video to make this year, or just overall, I guess. Actually, listen, to be real honest, I don't think making the videos are tough. I think having to deal with the response can be tough on occasion, because you have to build yourself up to be ready and prepare for what may come at you. Because, you know, when you're and by the way, y'all know I'm long-winded and I say a whole lot in my videos. So not only am I talking about something that's going to ruffle feathers, but I sit and saturate in that subject for 10, 15, sometimes 20 and 30 minutes. And so by the time I put the video out, I usually do a lot of my videos really late at night, and then it's usually 2 or 3 in the morning when it gets uploaded. And so when I go to bed, I'm like, man, I wonder how bad I'm going to get cussed out when I wake up in the morning. Oh well. But like, I've gotten to a point where I don't really take any of the comments or anything personal, but when you get an overabundance of them thrown at you, sometimes it can be a lot. Like, man, mentally I'm not there today. But if I had to say, like, pretty much a lot of the videos I made in 2016 caught a lot of flack and backlash. And I still get comments about videos I made 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 months ago. But some of the ones I think that I had to really karate chop people over were my Oscars So White videos. Probably the worst one as far as the content. Like, white people just were not having it with me on that one. Because, you know, I talked about the lack of diversity in the Oscars. And really, it wasn't a video for white people. It was a video for black people and people of color. And I was saying that, look, we need to stop always giving these award shows so much prestige and celebrate our own with what we already have. Stop depending on things like Oscars and, you know, Grammys and stuff to determine whether or not we're successful, because one, that stuff is not meant for us. And that was really the basis of the video. But white people just heard, you know, they didn't know what I was talking about. And a lot of times they won't watch the video. They just see the title and hear the first 30 seconds, assume it's a Woe Is Me video, and they get the pounding keys and say stupid things like, oh, well, you know, what about BET Awards? White people don't win those. I'm like, no, actually 7 people did already, and they had 41 nominees as well that have been white, but cool. Carry on. Another one, let me see, the Macklemore video when he came out with the white privilege song. A lot of white people didn't like my 2 cents on that, because I said, you know, it was even just a privilege for him to talk about white privilege, because people will listen to him talk about it before they listen to me or anybody else who's black. And white people, some stupid person was like, that's it, I am done. I am done. You know, first, if we don't say anything about racism, we're racist. And now when we talk about it, we're racist too. Well, I give up. And I was like, listen, if you got pissed off by my little 6-minute video talking about that Macklemore is privileged because he's probably getting a check to talk about the same thing that black people are ridiculed for talking about, then you probably weren't down with the movement anyway. So carry on. any video that I do about police killing somebody, Alton Sterling, Terrence Crutcher, all those always get, I get called all kind of names, and everything's black people's fault, and black on black crime this, and so on and so on. The Ryan Lochte video got a lot of flack. They're like, how dare you, and shut up on Brazil, and blah, 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 blah. Colin Kaepernick is probably, actually, I think Colin Kaepernick might have been the one I got it the hardest on. They weren't having it with me on that one. But I mean, I stood by everything. Like, in all these videos, I stand by everything I say. A lot of times, I don't even respond to the negative comments. I respond to, like, people who I recognize that are subscribed, or people who really have a genuine question or don't understand something. But I've learned to stop trying to always explain myself to white people. If I've already done a 20-minute video on something, chances are I pretty much explained it very well already. And not to go there, but a lot of white people already know what we're talking about. They just like to play naive and play dumb. There are some who genuinely don't understand what I'm saying, and sometimes it's like getting hit by a brick and they're just in total shock that I'd even open my mouth to say certain things. And so they're offended and they say all that, and okay, that's one demographic. But a lot of these people know exactly what we're talking about, and they like to play dumb. And when we make these assertions or make these statements, they want us to have an entire 30-page dissertation full of evidence in order for them to even hear our argument. But they'll sit there and watch something like Fox News and CNN, and they'll just spew some BS all day, and they don't hold them to that same standard. And so it's like, you know what, I'm not wasting my energy with y'all. So I've taught myself to not really engage with people who are really not there to learn anything, but they're really just there because they're reactionary. My videos are not, I don't think, reactionary. I think they tell the truth of the origins of how society works. And if you're somebody who's always reactionary to everything that I say, you're probably misinterpreting the real message behind what I'm saying. You know what I mean? Anyway, and yeah, the little teenage kids didn't like my AMA video because I pretty much cooked all the people who were there. I didn't like the AMAs this year. And then I think the most, if there's one that's disappointing, where my feelings aren't hurt, but I'm just like, man, there's so much work to be done. It's definitely the video I made talking about the divide that exists between black Americans and Africans and why we have to fix that divide and what the origin is behind it. A lot of people just couldn't fully grasp what I was talking about. And I think what it is, when you're having a Pan-Africanist conversation, when you're talking about a structural system that affects the world globally, you have to remember that the experience changes with each represented group and each region that they're from. So, I can go pull somebody who's from, just down the street over in Baltimore, and that person and I can talk about all kind of stuff in the community, and we're right here. And then I can bring in somebody who's a first-gen or second-gen immigrant from another country of African descent, and things start to vary and change. And then if there's somebody who's not even an immigrant, who's actually on or in the respective place that they live, so maybe they're actually on the continent of Africa, maybe they live in Sierra Leone, or maybe they live in Cameroon, or maybe they're in the Caribbean and they're in Anguilla or something, and they have never been to the United States, and there's just some things that they don't see the same way that I see, then the conversation becomes more difficult to have. Because I'm sure if you're somebody who lives in a majority black country, it's very hard to hear black Americans talk white people this, white people that, because one, they're not seeing a lot of white people. There's white people who live all over Africa and in the Caribbean and everything, but they're not the mainstream population. The mainstream way of thinking is still pretty much through a white lens a lot of times, but it's hard for people to grasp what's going on. So with that video I made, a lot of confusion, a lot of reactionary people. People couldn't get past the first 3 or 4 minutes because they didn't like my little story about one of the kids calling me a kata, and then there's an argument about whether a kata is a derogatory term or not. And my argument to that is, you can have a term that may not originally have a derogatory meaning, but once you start using it in a derogatory way, it can become a derogatory term. That was my argument to it, so I don't know why there was so much backlash with that. And so a lot of people who I think really needed to hear the message, they got lost with the initial little story that I opened the video with, and they were like, you black Americans, blah blah blah. And I'm like, oh God. And so I don't even get mad, and I didn't cook anybody, because it's a growing conversation and it's a learning experience. And to be very honest, listen, white supremacy works a million different ways, and an example of that is just in the comment section on that video. Let's move on to something happier. Side note. Okay, some people have been complaining about the decor in the background, because some people are like, can you get a new set in the back? Or, sometimes I might have my blender is there, I think. They're like, can you move the blender out the way? Or you got the dish soap over there. And listen, I'm sorry. When I do these videos, I just need you to get the message. All this in the background, listen, you get me 100%. This is my house. This is where I live. So this is just me in my element. Now, if you have followed me from the beginning, This is a come up. All right, if you were with me when I first started, my very first YouTube video that I made was on my little webcam in my mom's kitchen, back in Spanaway, Washington, in the kitchen. And then I think I didn't want my channel to be like other people's, and this is no diss to any other blogger, but I didn't want it to be something where I'd be making a video and people would be walking in the background and cats would be walking across the table and somebody would be getting a whooping on the side, and then the mailman would come in. So I was like, okay, the kitchen's not working, because there was always something going on in the kitchen. So then I think I was using my mom's bathroom, because it was the only place that had like a white wall and good lighting. So I was doing it in my mom's bathroom, but I had this little cheap laptop and the webcam wasn't good. And then I upgraded to a flip camera, and you know, I kept doing the bathroom banger videos for you know, the channel. And then I moved back to the DMV, and I think the first time I didn't have my apartment yet, so I think I did like an award show review in a hotel. And then when I moved to my apartment that used to be in Alexandria, I started with the white wall, but the lighting was different, so the videos didn't look that good. And then I started putting my little posters in the background, but they would change every day. And then I moved to a corner in the apartment, and then I upgraded to these cameras that you see now. And then I finally moved here, and I was like, you know what? Boom, you just get what you get, okay? Just take the message as it is. So listen, I hope, listen, maybe I'm trying to market these books for y'all to read, okay? So yeah, most likely this will probably be what you will see as long as I'm in this apartment. I'm actually in the process, and I'm considering relocating actually out of DC. So hey, if things change, maybe you'll get a new background. Okay, you might get a window. All right. The next one. Somebody asked me about black businesses and what are my thoughts, because they're telling me about like a bad experience they've had. And let me just do a quick, perfect. They're telling me about a bad experience they've had and why they don't really like to support black businesses. And here's my thing on that. There are a lot of black businesses where I have to give a strong side eye, like, what are you doing? But we can't let that be the determining factor on why we choose not to support a black business. And the reason why is this. We will generalize our own after one or two bad experiences, and then that's the end of the day. But when it comes to corporations and stuff that treat us terribly all the time, we continue to go back to them. Like, how many times have you gone to a fast food restaurant, or you go to McDonald's or something, and they mess up your order, or the customer service is terrible, or they messed up your change, or, you know, you got sick the next day after what you ate or whatever, but you still end up going there later down the line. You continue to go there. It's not something where you write off all fast food, you write off all, you know, whatever places you go to, which we should be eating fast food anyway. But you know what I mean? When it comes to black businesses, a lot of times people will have a bad experience with one black business or two, and they're like, that's it, I'm not doing any of them. Now, I do think we have to hold a lot of these businesses to a higher standard and let people know, like, listen, if we're supporting you and you're in our community and we're giving you our dollar, then there needs to be a certain standard of service and excellence that you give us, because we could just go to the corporation and pay a cheaper price for the same product, you know, stuff like that. But you also have to recognize the origin and the history and the business side of what goes on with a lot of these black businesses, especially black stores, because a lot of times the inventory has to be so high because, one, they're not getting a lot of wholesale deals because a lot of vendors are really shady. And if you're talking about the hair business, I always talk about this, but if there's a black-owned beauty supply store or hair store, you know, it's hard for them to get inventory because all the catalog magazines which they order their merchandise from is always in Korean. And so it's very hard for them to get stuff. So you need companies like Bonner Brothers and everything like that to get their products, because a lot of the products they just can't get. The Koreans will not sell to them. And it's funny. That's another conversation, but I don't feel like doing it right now. And like, because a prime example, hold on, I'm going to switch my video. All right, so yeah, my thing was about to run out and start over. But like a prime example is like, so I was trying a new dentist not too long ago. And I was like, I'm going to go to this dentist. It was a black dentist. I was like, okay, cool. Howard graduate. You know, I think 3/4 of the dentists in the country who are black actually came out of Howard dentistry. So I'm like, okay, cool. Let me support, or maybe it's 1/4. I forgot. But I was like, yeah, let me support my people. And so I went to this dentist. Man, listen. The rage that ensued. First, he was like, you know, you need this amount of fillings. And I'm like, what? I don't need no fillings. Like, I don't feel any pain when I eat anything sweet. There's no... You know, my teeth aren't sensitive. What do you mean I need this many fillings? And what he was trying to say was, I got a bunch of fillings back when I was in like 6th grade. And so he wanted to replace the old ones and put the new ones in, you know, the nice little porcelain ones that blend in with your teeth. So when you open your mouth wide, nobody can tell you have fillings. He wanted to replace it with those. And I'm kind of like, I'm good. You don't got to do that. But then he was like, I also want to do like 7 more preventative ones. I was like, what do you mean preventative? He's like, I just want to go ahead and get them before they turn into... I was like, listen, you're not going to just be drilling in my mouth, because he was trying to have me get like 15 fillings. I was like, I take care of my teeth now. Let's not. But anyway, I did need a crown though, because an actual dentist that I had in the past, which was a Korean dentist, I don't know what he did, but he messed up one of my fillings and half did it. And so it made my whole tooth just be all a mess. So they needed to actually fix it. But it got to the point where I didn't move fast enough and it got worse. So they're like, you need to put a crown on. And so if you know how to do a crown is just, they basically numb your mouth. They basically drill around the tooth and make it like a square stub. And then they put like a temporary tooth on there. Like, you know, you bite down on a little clay thing, they take a mold of your mouth, and then that's where they get the temporary and the permanent crown from. But anyway, so they did the little thing to my, you know, black dentist did the thing to my tooth, made the little stub and everything, gave me the temporary crown. He's like, okay, in 2 weeks you'll really want to be ready, you can get the permanent one. Cool, no problem. Temporary crown breaks the same day I got it. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. So I called the dentist, he's like, oh, don't worry about it, just keep the area clean for 2 weeks. Okay, so now I'm walking around like a tooth missing on the side. I'm already pissed or whatever, because I really felt that they just needed to redo the filling. They didn't have to make it a crown. And so I'm walking around, tooth missing from the side. That's probably why I didn't do a YouTube video for 2 or 3 weeks this year, because I didn't want nobody seeing a whole side missing. And anyway, 2 weeks go by, 3 weeks go by. 4, I'm like, where is this my tooth or whatever? I've been walking around with like a missing spot there in this little square stuff. And so finally in the 5th week I call, I'm like, yo, what's going on with my crown? Like, it's been forever. And then, you know, when your tooth is not in its whole, you know, capacity, and you shaved all the enamel off and all the protective coating, and it's just the bare root of the tooth, it's very dangerous and unsanitary, because it's exposed to everything. So as you eat acidic food and you eat apples and maybe you have vinegar in your water and stuff like that, it's tearing that tooth up. And so I'm like, listen, I need you to give me my freaking crown. Oh yeah, we gotta check to see when the order comes in. Then he gonna call me back an hour later. Oh yeah, we got your order, come on in and get it. And so they put the crown in, but it's been 5 weeks, my teeth have shifted. So he's over here trying to force the thing in. I'm like, and my mouth is or whatever. And then like, so he thought I ain't noticed, but he actually took a drill and drilled into one of my other teeth to try to make room for the crown. I'm like, what the fuck? So now I gotta get that one fixed. I found a new dentist too, by the way. But anyway, going back to my point, does that mean I will never go to a black dentist again? No, it just means I won't go to that one. So, you know, when it comes to black businesses, yes, hold them accountable when they're in the wrong. I really want to sue the pants off that dentist, whatever, but it's not worth my energy. Plus, I'm trying to get my spirit and stuff right, so I'm not even going to do that. But I recommend do not go to that dentist. Inbox me if you want to know the name of the dentist place. Anyway, let's move on. Somebody asked me about Barack Obama. This is what I'm going to do. Since he's about to be out of office anyway, I'll probably do a video about his exit and his whole presidency in a later one. So we'll just come back to him, because I got words and words for days, man. Somebody asked me about Janet, and do I think she's coming back after she has the baby, and can she actually successfully come back? I honestly don't know. I think if she does return to her tour after she has the baby, it's going to be probably scaled down, not as many days. I don't know. You know, I really don't know. And the thing about it is, like, if you follow me, you know, that is one of my favorite entertainers in the world. She could do no wrong in my book, but I would best believe I was cussing her out in my head all day when she canceled my show, or shows. But here's the thing. Honestly, with Janet Jackson, I feel like she doesn't want it anymore, and she's been over the music industry probably since 2004. And I think what happened is, after the Super Bowl happened, she still came out with the Demi Joe album. And I mean, I think she pushed that album really hard. She did what she could do. She was on all the talk shows, all the award shows. She was doing Ellen and Jimmy Fallon and Letterman and Leno and Saturday Night Live and interviews here and flying to Europe to do this and the Japan MTV Awards and this and that. And I mean, she worked really, really hard to try to push that album, but she was blacklisted. MTV was no longer playing her videos. The radio had banned her. She was banned from like 70% of the radio stations. And like I've said before, some artists like Janet or Beyonce, they're successful because of a machine that's behind them and a machine that supports them. And when elements of that machine are missing, it affects them deeply. So with like Beyonce in the 4 album, I think the machine, they were kind of changing structure because they wanted the focus to be more about Beyonce's music, and even though the imaging was still there, they wanted the music to speak for itself. So they didn't push for the same way they pushed some of the earlier albums, and it didn't do what it normally would do. It still was successful, and it's still probably one of her better albums, but like the whole era was just, it was very quiet there. And then she got pregnant and there was no major tour, so it was different. But like with Janet, the same thing. When there was no MTV to support her because videos, she was a video artist. And so now when your only outlets for videos are VH1, which was kind of transitioning to more of a reality show network, and BET, which kind of still was doing music, but you know, a lot changes, and then no radio support. And so it kind of just killed her. And so, I mean, she was performing that All Night Don't Stop on everything she could perform it on, but with no radio support and no MTV and stuff like that, it was just really hard for that album to be successful. And yeah, she still sold like 3 million copies of it, but it was like she wasn't able to tour because she really wanted to, but the label was like, look, the whole world hates you right now. You just gotta wait. So they kind of just let that album die. And it's funny because originally with that album, the single, the first single, which was supposed to be like this little pop rock song, it actually was like doing really well, and then out of nowhere, it just, they yanked it. The label was like, just yank it. It's, you know, she's getting too much ridicule right now. And they didn't know what to do with the album, so that fell apart. Then you go to the next album, and she knows she doesn't have MTV, she knows she doesn't have radio, so she said, well, let me take advantage of the magazines. And at this point, she's turning 40, so she's trying to do the whole I'm still sexy thing. And the thing is, most magazine readers are a lot older, and I think they were still trying to market her to the younger demographics. Younger demographics don't really read magazines. So when these older women were picking up like an Ebony magazine, and Janet got on one of her little sexy outfits, people are like, what the hell? And so, you know, they're cussing her out and everything else like that. And she wanted to tour again, but this time there were no sponsors who believed that she could sell out arenas, so they were like, don't even ask, you know what I mean? And she didn't have the support of the label because she was trying to leave the label, and so then that tour never happened before, like, it wasn't even announced, but there was no tour that was going to happen. Then the next album comes. This is such a long story, I don't know why I'm doing this. Next album comes, she doesn't want to do the album anyway, she just wants to tour. LA Reid is like, look, do an album, then we can tour. She's on a new label, they have problems with the whole promoting of the album, they can't agree on the singles, the album gets shelved the week it comes out, which is why Discipline was not promoted. And so she still goes on tour, which was the Rock With You tour, but this was a tour that she basically funded herself. She didn't have a lot of sponsorships. The promoters were a little skittish with her, so they started off slow to like, we'll just do like 20 cities and everything like that. And I mean, she tried to incorporate everything that came from the Demita Joe and the 20YO and Discipline era and the idea she had for those tours and try to make it into the Rock With You tour. And so like one of the ideas was like she wanted to have a catwalk that went all, like if you went to the Rock With You tour, she had this catwalk that made like a pit, but she wanted it to originally extend all the way across the whole arena, and so she could reach and get to all of the fans. And they were like, you know how expensive that crap is, and so they're like, that's not gonna happen. But anyway, they downsized some of her ideas for the Rock With You tour, but it's still a really huge production. Lots of pyrotechnics and wardrobe changes and this and that. And you know, the show is almost 3 hours long because she did like 39 or 40 songs, including songs from her first 2 albums that nobody remembers, like the Dream Street and the Janet Jackson album. And you know, she did a whole lot on that show. And it was just, watching it was great, but I think it was a physically exhausting show because it was like, this is a woman who was like 43, and she's pushing herself to try to still do what she was doing when she was like 25 or whatever. But not only that, her show is twice as long, because even in her heyday, her shows were only about 1 hour and 30 minutes, 1 hour 40. Now she's doing a 3-hour show, and so she's winning, she's tired, she's gained a little weight, the media's ripping her apart, she's this and she's that, and the tour just doesn't do that good. You know, and she's kind of ripped apart for it, and they cancel the tour, and she's, you know, the butt of all jokes, and then she gains weight again, and there's just a bunch of stuff that happens. Then the stuff with Michael Jackson's kids happen, and, you know, they paint her out to be this abusive kid who slaps little white girls and calls them bitches, which didn't even happen. And, you know, she has all this ridicule, and then she marries the husband, and now they want to know if she's Muslim or not, and the whole Nutris, like, there's just a lot going on with her. But I think she did the last album just because she recognized she still had fans that wanted to hear her music. And I think the tour was like, okay, I'm ready to go back out there. And the tour actually was doing really good. It's just, hey, here comes the baby. You know, when you're 50 and you've been given that opportunity to give birth at a time where most likely it shouldn't have been happening because those eggs should have been long gone, and you still somehow had one left somewhere in the back corner to use, and you were able to have a baby, go for it. I don't know if she'll come back. I would hope so. I was pissed, man. I had a New York and a DC show. I was livid, but I was like, I can't be mad at her because she want to have a baby. You know, she want to have a baby. Let the woman have a child. Damn. But yeah, I don't know. If she comes back, I don't even know how it would go because her touring credibility is so shot right now. I think what she would have to do is she would seriously, one, she'd have to revamp that show. I think it was a great show from what I saw. I love that she was dancing again and actually singing live and a lot of the show, and I think it was a great show, but I think she'd have to revamp it. People like the costume changes, so she'd have to bring that back because she pretty much was wearing the same thing for the whole show. So, you know, I think she'd have to do that. I think she'd have to add some songs to the set list. This show was a little bit shorter than the others, and she kind of zipped through all the songs, but her energy was great. But I'd say add some songs to the set list, and I think either she would have to re-release the Unbreakable album or do a totally new one. And I would hate for her to just do a new one because the Unbreakable album is really good. Maybe she can re-release it with some new tracks and try to re-promote it, but she'd actually have to promote this time. Like this past album, she just chose to release it and stay home. There were no interviews, no anything, and it goes back to what I was saying about her just being over it. Like, I don't think she cares. She just wanted to do the music and leave her alone, let me be happy. So if she comes back, it'd be great. I personally wouldn't mind if she just went ahead and retired. Just go on and do, and just rename the tour the Farewell Tour, and people will go, you know, they'll buy tickets, and then you go live happily ever after. Okay? You've done your work. You don't have to keep trying to prove yourself to kids anymore. Anyway, this video is getting so long, so let me do one more question. Okay, somebody said, like, you mentioned something about music in the past few videos. What are you working on? Alright, I don't like telling y'all everything. But if you follow me, you remember years ago I said I was working on an album, but then things kind of fell apart before they even started. Like the person that I was gonna like produce it and all with, we're not really tied anymore. So I was like, and then plus they were not in DC, they're in like another whole region of the country, and I wasn't going all the way out there to keep recording and stuff. And then, you know, my dad had died, and then just a whole lot was going on, so it kind of got pushed on the back burner. And then I started working for the magazine as well, so that kind of became one of my, you know, I was really working with that. But 2016 happened, and so I got a really great tax return, and I got a really great refund from all 3 Janet tickets that I bought, because I had 2 tickets to one show because one of my friends, we were going to party up in New York. And then, so with that money, I went ahead and I bought a bunch of studio equipment that I've been meaning to get for a really long time. So I went and got like Pro Tools, and I mean I already have like a keyboard and a lot of other instruments, but you know I got like another MIDI keyboard and like a drum kit and the interface and the speakers and the this and the that and all the stuff that you need to make a recording studio. And I just built my own recording studio. And so what I've been doing, I'm basically rehashing what I was trying to do earlier. So I'm working on an album. I don't really, it might actually end up being 2 albums. One would be a smooth jazz album where there's no singing or anything, it's just me making instrumentals like jazz tracks, and then the other would actually be more of an R&B, experimental, just a little bit of everything kind of album. I'm not trying to be famous with it, it's just something I'm doing to just say that I've done it, like boom, I got it. But I'm really taking my time with it, I'm not really rushing it, there's not really an expected release date. If you follow me on social media, you may have heard a few things that I've kind of put out there, just some of the instrumental tracks and the ideas that I've been working on, but I haven't really released anything. I haven't recorded any of the vocals yet. I've just been covering all the music first, just and writing the songs and everything like that. And but yeah, when it is time to come out, I'll let you all know. I don't, you know, and it's just I'm still debating on if I'll put it on iTunes or if I'll just release it for free. Because hell, I would like to get some kind of return on this investment I made, but. You know, it's just a project I'm working on, and then I just want to really make sure that it's done right, because I know y'all will be like, look, you talked all that mess in your R&B is Dead series, and this is what you came out with, so I gotta really make sure I come correct. But yeah, as it progresses and as I get closer to it, you know, being where I want it to be, then I'll definitely update you guys, and you know, maybe I'll do a spot date here somewhere around the DMV or something like that, or a release party. I'll give you an update. But right now, I think it's maybe 15% done. I've done 24 tracks so far. Of the 24, 18 are a possibility. Of the 18, only 4 are like really like a definite yes. Like these 4 are definitely going on. So I still have a lot of ideas I'm playing with, and there's a lot more I still need to do. So I'll update you when it gets there. Anyway, this video is so long, and I'm going to let it die here. But I will probably do like 2 or 3 more videos before the year is out, because I kind of went through a little dry spell, so I got to make up for some of the lost videos. And by the way, you all, thank you, because I said at the beginning of this year I wanted to set my subscriber goal to 5,000, and we're almost at 6, and I didn't really think it was really going to happen. I was just playing. So thank you guys for subscribing and spreading my videos and everything that you guys do. And yes, we'll just keep them coming. All right, take care. I'm out. Subscribe.